Stay quiet. Aftab's evening walk had been lonely and difficult. After that day, whatever he had seen seemed to hide a shadow in his mind, one that never went away. At first, he thought his restlessness and anxiety were just the result of his tiredness. But what he was feeling now was something more than mere unease. He often had the strange sensation that someone was following him. With every step he took, he felt the presence of someone else, watching his every move, his every thought. It was unsettling. What made it even harder to understand was that Aftab didn't know who to talk to about it. Who could he turn to for help? Everyone he reached out to seemed as distant as his own troubled thoughts. The images that haunted him didn't seem to belong to this world, didn't belong to him. One evening, after he had locked himself in his room, Aftab pulled out an old notebook. It was filled with photos, scribbles, and memories that he had hidden away. These were the remnants of a life he had left behind. As he flicked through the pages, one particular image caught his eye. A photograph of a girl. Slowly, as he examined the picture, something about her smile seemed eerie. She was someone he knew, someone he had once been very close to. The girl in the picture wasn't just anyone. She was a childhood friend. Aftab's heart began to race. He stared at the image for what felt like an eternity. What was this? Why was she in his photo album? Was it a coincidence, or was something more sinister at play? He couldn't shake off the feeling that this image, this girl, had come back into his life in some strange way. She had passed away years ago. At least, that's what he remembered. So why was her face, her smile, haunting him now? That night, after hours of restless thinking, Aftab couldn't sleep. He kept imagining that the girl, the one from the photograph, was standing in his room. Her image had begun to feel like a presence, like she wasn't just a memory, but a living, breathing force. Aftab closed his eyes tight, trying to block her out, but when he opened them again, she was still there. She was standing in front of him. "Am I losing my mind?" he whispered to himself. But the room stayed silent. Too silent. Days went by, but the feeling only intensified. He couldn't shake the image of the girl, not from his mind, not from his thoughts. She had become part of his daily existence. Every time he closed his eyes, she was there. And every time he opened them, she stood in front of him, smiling. This wasn't just a memory, it was something more. Aftab was beginning to feel like he was trapped in a nightmare, but he didn't know how to wake up. He couldn't help but wonder, was she really gone? Was she a ghost? A memory? Or was it something else entirely? One night, unable to stand the pressure any longer, Aftab reached for his phone and dialed the number of an old friend. The call went unanswered. He tried another friend. Still no reply. It was as if no one could hear him. Or perhaps no one even cared anymore. Then came the revelation. The girl wasn't just a memory, and she wasn't a ghost either. She was something else, something darker, something that Aftab had forgotten, but had now resurfaced. Her image, her presence, was not something he could escape. No one could help him. The next time he saw her in his room, her smile was more chilling than before. It was as if she knew everything about him, his fears, his regrets, his dark secrets. And worst of all, Aftab realized that she wasn't leaving. Her words, soft and ghostly, filled the air. "I'm always with you." Aftab's heart began to race. The air in the room seemed to grow thicker, heavier. He felt like he was suffocating, trapped in a world where the boundaries between the living and the dead had blurred. He didn't know how much time had passed, but when he opened his eyes again, she was still there. The days grew darker, and the nights stretched on forever. Aftab could no longer differentiate between the real world and the nightmares that now filled his mind. The girl, who once had been a sweet childhood friend, had now become the embodiment of something terrifying, a haunting that wouldn't let him go. It didn't matter how many times he tried to escape or forget her. She was always there, waiting in the shadows. Her image had fused with his very existence. He couldn't remember when he had last slept peacefully. All he knew was that he was now trapped in a reality where past and present collided. And the girl he had once known was no longer just a photograph in a dusty old album. She was a presence, something real, something terrifying, and something that had no intention of letting him go. And now, as Aftab sat alone in his room, listening to the echo of his own breath, he realized the truth. The girl had never left. She had never been gone. She had always been a part of him. And now she was forever with him, haunting him, watching him. Her voice, barely a whisper, echoed in his mind. "I'm always with you." The end.